We are all gifted to live under a constitutional government. To appreciate it better, we should know the life before constitution. Let's take India as an example. In India, human life before the constitution was pathetic. In ancient and medieval India, during the reign of many kings, many social evils and human rights violations were practiced. The caste-based fourfold division of society was created and given greater emphasis. Not everyone was entitled to education. After the Mauryan period, the position of women declined, they were denied formal education and they were married off very early. Women were not given any right to property. Social evils such as sati and child marriage, dowry were accepted norms of the society. Kings were performing judicial functions also. Punishments granted by some rulers were very cruel. There were no judicial institutions to protect the people from the tyranny of rulers. During medieval period, religious intolerance of some rulers caused suffering to the people. Even during British period, the situation of human life was pathetic. The British government was not aimed at promoting a welfare state that concerned primarily about welfare of the people. It was aimed at expanding and protecting its empire. Our resources were exploited not for the development of India but for the benefit of Britain. It was not a government by the people for the people. The British rule was primarily focused on increasing its fortunes until their stay in the subcontinent. Inequality and caste injustices were rampant in the society. British took no substantial measures to protect the oppressed and the downtrodden. Indians were poorly represented in the government from the outset. When elections were introduced, not everyone had the right to vote. Voting rights were decided on the basis of individuals' wealth and status even during the British period. The status of women were abysmal. They were denied property, voting right. An individual's freedom was highly restricted. We could not talk against the government. We could not practice the profession of our interest. Overall, the life before the Indian Constitution was discriminatory, exploitative, and disparaging. After its enactment, our Indian Constitution at one stroke struck down the above evils to the ground. Let's get to know more about why we all need a constitution. Constitution allows coordination and assurance. Members of any group can live together if they can agree on some basic rules. Think of what would happen in the absence of some basic rules in a society. Every individual would be insecure simply because they would not know what members of this group could do to each other. Who could claim rights over what? Any group will need some basic rules that are publicly promulgated and known to all members of that group to achieve a minimal degree of coordination. But these rules must not only be known, they must also be enforceable. If citizens have no assurance that others will follow these rules, they will themselves have no reason to follow these rules. Saying that the rules are legally enforceable gives an assurance to everybody that others will follow these, for if they do not do so, they will be punished. Constitution provides a set of basic rules that allow for minimal coordination amongst members of a society. Specification of decision-making powers. A constitution is a body of fundamental principles according to which a state is constituted or governed. It specifies the basic allocation of power in a society. It decides who gets to decide what the laws will be. In a monarchical constitution, a monarch decides but in democratic constitutions, the people get to decide. In the Indian Constitution, for example, it is specified that in most instances, Parliament gets to decide laws and policies. If the Parliament has the authority to enact laws, there must be a law that bestows this authority on Parliament in the first place. This is the function of a constitution. It is an authority that constitutes government in the first place. Since an individual's own personal power is severely limited, nothing valuable can be attained without the collective effort of individuals. A boulder cannot move a centimeter if one individual pushes it, but when pushed by dozens, it goes places. Most human goods, health, education, infrastructure, economic growth, leisure and enjoyment, art and literature are realized by assembling power. However, once constituted, this indispensable collective power can be misused for one's own exclusive advantage to secure things only for oneself. This can be done by forcing others to do what they would not otherwise do, to get them to act against their will for one's own benefit. In modern societies, this collective power is largely vested in the state, relatively separate from society. State power meant for everyone's good, but it can be used by some over other members of society to benefit just a few of its functionaries and their friends. Since the formation of states, therefore, humans have felt the need to not only garner collective power but also limit it so that it is not exercised whimsically or arbitrarily for self-aggrandizement and against the basic interests of the people. This is the key reason why we have a constitution. It acts as a bulwark against the tyrannical use of state power to dominate and oppress others. Constitution specifies who has the power to make decisions in a society. It decides how the government will be constituted. What if the authority specified by the Constitution made laws that were unjust and unfair? Constitution sets some limits on what a government can impose on its citizens. These limits are fundamental in the sense that government may never trespass them. Constitutions limit the power of government in many ways. The most common way of limiting the power of government is to specify certain fundamental rights that all of us possess as citizens and which no government can ever be allowed to violate. For example, citizens will be protected from being arrested arbitrarily and for no reason. Citizens will normally have the right to some basic liberties, to freedom of speech, freedom of conscience, freedom to conduct a trade or business, etc. Most of the older constitutions limited themselves largely to allocating decision-making power and setting some limits to government power. But many 20th century constitutions also provide an enabling framework for the government to do certain positive things to express the aspirations and goals of society. Societies with deep entrenched inequalities of various kinds will not only have to set limits on the power of government, they will also have to enable and empower the government to take positive measures to overcome forms of inequality or deprivation. For example, India aspires to be a society that is free of caste discrimination. The Indian Constitution was designed to break the shackles of traditional social hierarchies and usher in a new era of freedom, equality, and justice. Thus, by disenabling states from doing certain things, constitutions enable them to do other important things. The framers of the Indian Constitution, for example, thought that each individual in society should have all that is necessary for them to lead a life of minimal dignity and social self-respect, minimum material well-being, education, etc. The Indian Constitution enables the government to take positive welfare measures, some of which are legally enforceable. The directive principles of state policy also enjoin government to fulfill certain aspirations of the people. In the same way, Constitution of South Africa wants the government to take measures to promote conservation of nature and to ensure adequate housing to all, healthcare, etc. The Indonesian Constitution ensures that the poor and destitute children will be looked after by the government. Ignorantly, many of us may have thought that the Constitution, as the fundamental law of the country, restricts our lives, but it is the other way around. Let's conclude with the quote of Patrick Henry, an American lawyer and politician, which sums up the nature and power of a constitution at best. The Constitution is not an instrument for the government to restrain the people, it is an instrument for the people to restrain the government.